I've got a belt sander problem. I don't even use belt sanders that frequently, but I don't really want to get rid of this one because it takes a really large sanding belt. So for sanding large, flat surfaces, you can't really beat it. I'm definitely not going to get rid of this one because it's small and compact, and best of all, it runs on batteries, so I can take it anywhere. And I don't really want to get rid of this one either. I've had it for years and it's a great tool. There is a belt sander that I'm willing to part with though. When I recently set up my 2-part dust extraction system, I had to free up quite a lot of space. So I ended up removing my bench, belt and disc sander, which used to sit right here. And to be honest, I don't think I'm going to miss it all that much. I definitely used the disc sander on that machine a lot, but I hardly ever used the belt sander. So I think what I'm going to do is use one of my 3 smaller belt sanders to do everything that disc sander used to do. And that way I've gained lots of space in the workshop. I'll use these offcuts of 18mm MR MDF for this project. And I had a rough idea of what I wanted to make, and if you have this exact belt sander and you want to have a go at making what I come up with in this video, there'll be some plans available for this project for free, linked down in the description box. The digital file will be hosted on Patreon, but you don't need to be a channel member to download it. Unless you want to be, of course, which would give you access to 30 project plans and cut lists, plus access to exclusive videos and early access to new videos. What I'm putting together here is a structure that will hold the body of the sander. So you know when you order an item on Amazon based on the images on the listing without checking the dimensions? Well, I've just fallen victim to that. So my Bosch belt sander is going to sit in here something like this. I'll just prop up this temporarily. And I was planning on mounting a couple of toggle clamps up on this piece to hold the tool in place. But this is what has arrived. Not only are they absolutely tiny, but they don't have enough travel on the bolt that's provided in them to hold the sander down. Now, I could simply elevate the sander by somewhere between 12 and 18mm, and I think then they would work okay. But to be honest, I think these are too dinky. I don't have much faith in them, so I'm going to send these back and order some bigger ones. While I'm waiting for the bigger toggle clamps, I can build a panel to clad this open side, which will need some cutouts in it to enable me to power the sander on. And this tool has a latching switch which you can use to lock the trigger in the on position, which is going to be great for what I'm building here. So the right sized toggle clamps have now shown up. This is the small sized one alongside it. Unfortunately though, there's still not enough travel on these clamps in order to hold the body of the belt sander down. This is my first time ever using these toggle clamps, so I wasn't aware of how they work. So in other words, I probably should have bought these before I built this. But it's not a major problem, it just means I need to raise up the body of the belt sander. And in case you're wondering, the plans I put together will be adjusted so that if you build this, you won't need to worry about raising up the body of the sander like I did here. I can see now that the toggle clamps are going to work fine, but because of this bit that juts out from the body, I'm going to need to add some further pieces to support this part of the body, and it looked as though another piece of 18mm would be pretty close to what I need. But there was still a bit of wobble here, and I'll need to refine that later. In the meantime though, I'm going to mark up where some holes will be needed, the first of which will be to enable me to hook up some dust extraction. The port on the sander measures 30mm, but I'm going to drill a bigger hole that I know will be a good fit for my dust hose. And that lines up nicely. The next hole will be needed to feed through the power cable and plug. And now I can get the toggle clamps fitted, and these are fully adjustable so that the tension can be set using a couple of nuts. But before I set that, I need to eradicate the wobble I mentioned earlier, and a couple of washers were all that was needed here. Those washers are going to support these areas here on the belt sander. And with the toggle clamps adjusted, it's all working well. So now, removing the belt sander and putting it back in is really quick and easy to do. Next I need to make a table to support the workpieces that I'll be sanding, and I'm going to keep this pretty simple. And to attach the table, I'm going to use another type of toggle clamp. These are also adjustable via a bolt. So after securing the hook part of these clamps in place, I can set the tension on these too. I can now check it for square and it looks good. And it's really solid and secure too. Now that I have the tension on the bolts set as I want them, I'm going to use super glue and activator just to lock the position in place. Loctite would be best for this, but I didn't have any. I thought about making another table for this that would sit at 45 degrees. It's not often I sand anything that isn't at 90 or 45 degrees, but I've noticed something interesting. If I take the table I've already made, which is usually mounted like this, and instead offer it up like this, that's going to give me the 45-degree angle that I'm looking for. And I can simply mount a toggle to each side that will secure to the hooks that I've already added in order to mount it. The only thing is I've got this gap here between the table and the belt. So I can either make a new one of these with a 45-degree angle cut along this edge, or I can bodge what I've done already. And bodge it I did. This isn't going to need to be particularly strong, so it should be fine. The best way I could think of to check for accuracy was using a digital angle finder, and that is close enough for me. After a little bit of use, I noticed a problem with the sander sliding down a bit, which was applying pressure to the tracking screw. So I added a small piece of timber to help support the body, and that completely solved the issue. At this point I started adding some support pieces using some salvaged pine around where the dust extraction hose will be, but I ended up rethinking this and I'll explain that shortly. I've reached a bit of a crossroads with this project now. So originally I had designed this in a way so that it could be oriented in two different ways. So I can orient it like this, and I can also orient it like this. But I'm a little bit stuck in terms of how I would design a table that would mount to this piece here, because there's quite a big gap between the sanding belt and the base here. And the whole reason for adding this base here was so that I could put it into the vise in this orientation and still allow space for my dust extraction hose to come through the bottom here. But now that I think I'm going to be happy using it in this orientation only, I think I'm going to remove this base before the glue dries. So sorry if that's a bit of a cop-out, but I really struggle with projects like this. I'm no John Heiss, I'm no Jeremy Schmidt, I'm no Marius Hornberger. And as always, please do let me know your thoughts on this. The other thing I'm disappointed about is that I couldn't figure out a way to make a tilting table. There are some good 3D printed designs for this very sander though. My friend Dean at Woodwork Journey has printed one of these out recently and says it works pretty well. Anyway, back to this project. I designed this in a way so that it can be simply clamped down to any work surface, but with the body of the belt sander being so long, it does make the working height quite high. Fine for quick sanding operations, but if using it for longer periods of time, it might get uncomfortable. But putting it into a vise or some other work holding device like this provides a better solution. And I have this nice area underneath my workbench where I'm going to store this. Thanks for watching.